Remember, our inquiry is, what did Jesus die for? Did he die for God to be satisfied? Did he die to appease God? Did he die to meet the demand of God? That's what we're investigating here very carefully. Romans chapter 5 verse 12 will help us. Romans chapter 5 verse 12. Read for me.
Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned.
Remember, the book of Romans contains the best explanation of death. So your understanding must be birthed from this text. Your understanding of death must be birthed from this text. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. So sin came from the outside. Sin came from the outside, which means sin brought death. Sin brought death. That must be settled in your thinking, that death came by sin. Death came by sin. So let's look at the motions of death, how they interplay. Good enough, Brother James gives us an explanation of the motions of sin in James chapter 1 verse 13. James 1:13.
Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man.
I'd like you to underline, God cannot be tempted with evil. God cannot be tempted with evil. And I'd like you to underline, neither tempted he any man. Neither tempted he any man. So temptation never comes from God. God can never tempt anybody. Christian, sinner, non-believer. God does not have temptation in his composition. There is no temptation in God. So he calls sin evil. He calls sin, God cannot be tempted with evil. He calls sin evil. The word kakos in the Greek, K-A-K-O-S, kakos. In 1 Corinthians 10:6. I'd like you to read that for me. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 6.
Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted.
Don't lust after evil things. Talking about sin. Sin is evil. Sin is evil. So the first thing he wants us to know is that God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. All right? Then he now says, but every man. Put up for me that James chapter 1 verse 14. I'd like you to now read for me verse 14. James 1:14.
But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed.
So first of all, God does not tempt anybody. God cannot be tempted. There is no temptation in God. So God exonerated. But every man is tempted. The word every man is the Greek word hikostios. It means each man, which shows a general thing. Each man, every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own loss. Three key words. Drawn away of his own loss. When he is drawn away of his own, not Satan, of his own loss, not Satan, and enticed. Now look at the use of words there. Own lust is the Greek word epitomai. E-P-I-T-U-M-A-I. Used 36 times. Something you are eager to do. Own lust. Something you are eager to do, or an uncontrolled desire. Something you personally want to do. Lust. Something your own desire that you want to give expression to. All right? So, own lust is something you want to do, but it's an uncontrollable desire. Number two use of word, drawn away. Drawn away is the Greek word exeiko, E-X-E-I-K-O. and it's used once, to be taken out of your place. Drawn away means you are taken out of your place because of an uncontrolled desire. Your desire was so strong, it could not be controlled, that the desire took you out of your own place. Are we still in the building? All right, so we are investigating, why did death come? And why did Jesus die? Or who did Jesus die for? Those are the things we're looking at. Now, there is a word there. Every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own laws, and that and is care. That is drawn away of his own laws, that is enticed. That is enticed. All right? Now, to be enticed is used for to be enticed. If you observe, when we started looking at the motion of sin, it didn't start from sin. It didn't start from sin. It began with desire. It began with uncontrolled desire. It didn't start from sin. It began from uncontrolled desire. So now he summarizes verse 13 and then 14, no sin. Look at 13 again. Let no man say when he's tempted, I'm tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. All right? No Satan there. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. There is no sin in verse 14. There is still no sin. He's drawn away of his own laws and he is enticed. Are you still here? So, no sin, he starts with a desire, but the desire had no check. The desire had no check until it became uncontrolled. The word enticed, the word he is enticed, is the Greek word eleazo, E-L-E-A-Z-O. Whenever it is used, it means something is hidden. Entice means like a bait. There is something behind it. It's like you put together a trap for a rat, and then you put meat on top of the trap, and you use meat to cover the trap. That meat that covers the trap is enticed. Because when the rat comes to the meat, the coming to the meat is the coming to the trap. So behind the meat is the trap. When you see the word entice, behind the entice is the trap. It's used in 2 Peter chapter 2, 4 and 18. You can write down for personal study. So something is hidden in the desire that the person who wants it cannot see. Something is hidden in the desire that the person who wants it cannot see. So, what is hidden in it? He will show you what is hidden. Don't forget, God cannot be involved in it. God does not tempt, and God is not tempted. So, all of these motions is within the activities of a man, without the interference of God or even the interference of Satan. It is man that is drawn away. It is man that has the lust. It is man that is enticed. Are we still in the building? It is man. All right, now please pay attention. It is man, but something is hidden in the desire that James now explains. Give me that verse 14 and 15. Read for me 14 and 15.
But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death.
When lust has conceived, the word conceived is the Greek word apotelio. A-P-O-T-E-L-E-O. It means when lust is fully done. That means there's a process. You look at it, you want it, a process is on. At that point of wanting, there is no sin. At the point where you want it, there is no sin, because even Jesus was tempted to a point where he didn't want it. He didn't want it. I don't want this cup. But that was not sin. So to the point where you want it, it is still not a sin. It is still not a sin that you want something that is not right. Doesn't make it a sin. But when it is full, when your want becomes full to a point where there's no more control, where there's no more control, the resultant effect of lack of control will be performance. It will be execution. It is at the point of execution that it is sin. Are we in the building? Okay. Now, Luke chapter 13 verse 32 shows you the use of the word apotelio. There's now a performance. Luke 13 verse 32.
And he said unto them, Go ye and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected.
I shall be perfected. There shall be a performance. A full performance is given. So temptation starts with a desire, but now is fully formed. Now, when a temptation starts with a desire to a point where that temptation is fully formed, what does it produce? Talk to me, church. What does it produce? It produces sin. It's not Satan that produced the sin. It was man's desire. It was not God that produced the sin. It was man's desire. And sin, when it is finished, produces what? Death. So lust is conceived, and when it is conceived, it brings forth sin. Sin, when it grows, it brings forth death. That is the motion of sin. So now you discover that God is not involved at all. So death comes by sin. Death comes by sin. A sin or sin comes by an uncontrolled desire. Uncontrolled desires come from desire. Uncontrolled desires come from desire. You see that? Sin comes by uncontrolled desire. Uncontrolled desire comes from desire. So desire, uncontrolled desire, sin, and death. That's the motion. Desire, uncontrolled desire, sin, and death. So God is not involved. Desire, uncontrolled desire, sin, and death. God is not involved. And you'll find out why in a few minutes. This totally, what you're hearing me say here, please pay attention. This totally upsets many of the Reformed theologians. It upsets the Reformed theology, because the Reformed theologians said, or they stipulate, that in the sovereignty of God, God is responsible for everything. That's Reformed theology. God is responsible for everything. So Reformed theologians attribute everything that happens to God. Good, bad, evil is all God. You break your leg, they will tell you God did it for a purpose. You are sick, they will tell you God is teaching you a lesson in humility. Your business stops working, you are not making money, they will tell you you've been proud as somebody that has money. So God has to teach you humility with poverty. Or they will tell you God knows that if he allows you to keep making money, you will forget him. That is the theory of the Reformed theologians. And what we just explained has debunked, not only debunked, it has rusticated. Not only rusticated, it has eradicated. Not only eradicated, it has obliterated. Not only obliterated, it has wiped out. that theology. Am I communicating here? Desire from man, uncontrolled desire from man produces sin, and sin from man produces death. Is that clear here? And if you observe carefully, James gave a witness to what Paul said in Romans. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, therefore all have sinned. Same thing Paul said, James said.